Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Right Time, a Wave original presented by Perplexity. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening wherever you get your podcast. Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Subscribe, like, rate us, review us, give us 5 stars. You only give us 4 stars, I'm inclined to believe you are a hater. It is that time of week where we have a guest joining us, coming to us live from Channel 6 and other places, the best college football writer in America, Spencer Hall. What's going on, sir?
Oh, you're looking at it. This is May, so we are officially in the second half of the off season, aka everyone either goes on vacation or does a scandal. That's right.
That is college football right there. Like that's or my personal favorite is that guy that's committing for the class of 2027. Like I'm supposed to remember that shit. Like the committee person who commits is supposed to remember that shit.
No, don't. I would just declare when you want to, kids. Just do it. If somebody hands you something, and it's the school you want to go to, just sign it. Get that over with because the calendar will change in another week or two. Yeah, this is when you start seeing people go a little crazy from lack of football or doing this. My favorite thing, as a proxy, as a substitute, ruining your sleep schedule with the NBA playoffs. That's a real good one.
Dude, I'm struggling, man, because it's a lot going on in life right now, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And I'm not built like I used to be to stay up late. I need to do a better job on the take a nap, but now it's harder to take a nap because it's the semifinals, so all the games kind of matter. So you can't just quite throw in the towel on the early game like we used to. Like on Monday night, that Nuggets Thunder game, I made a business decision in the third quarter. I was just like, okay, I just don't think this is going to happen. I got to get up at 6. And then I get up and Jokic went and did Jokic things. But I got all of Nick Celtics, right? I got to watch the Celtics miss all those threes. I don't think I made the right trade, but that was a comeback also. I can't do it all. I'm having to realize and recognize that.
I think that's important, especially if you are not, as I am, a practice napper. I will say napping is one of my superpowers. Yeah, you feel like a bum during the day when you do it. But it really pays off if you have to stay up, especially because this is the second round. First round, you can always count on your Boise States to show up in the first round and do what they do, which is lose. That's what you want, right? No offense to Boise State. I'm just saying in a first round situation in the playoffs, you're probably going to lose, right? You made the second this one. Congratulations. But typically that's what those teams are for. In the NBA, it's the Hawks. That's what I need the Hawks to do. I need you to make the playoffs, show up, and lose so I can go to bed in the third quarter.
Yeah, it's helpful. It really, really is. But we're lucky. The Warriors are our only Pacific time zone team. They're our only Pacific time zone team. And this is important because I don't think people know this, but I think the NBA says you cannot start a game after 8:30 local time.
Mm-hmm.
So a game in Minnesota, a game in Oklahoma City, a game in Denver, they can still give us 10:30 because it could be 8:30 Denver time. But we got some guardrails in place to save us.
Yeah, except now we don't, because apparently you can't sleep on any of these games. And that includes somehow the New York Knickerbockers. Yeah. That's nuts.
Your enunciation is appreciated.
You have to tap very deliberately there.
Yes. Yeah. You gotta give it like you pretending like you're doing a beat.
Yeah. You have to say it like it's the 19th century. That's what you have to do. Like you're speaking into a gramophone with a top hat on.
And for those of you who are too young to remember, in the late 1970s and early 1980s, when the NBA began to get blacker, like black to the way that it is now, because people don't know it wasn't always like this. I will say one of the more humorous forms of racism was the unenunciated name for the Knicks, is they had too many black people. And I'm like, oh, who came up with that one? Give that guy, let's bring this guy out here. Who wants to take credit for his work? I'm not going to say it wasn't funny.
We worked for Con Ed. That would be my guess. We worked for Con Ed. That would I went to high school with a bunch of Long Islanders, man, and it was the best because you'd go, hey man, didn't your uncle get into a fight and end up in Rikers? He's like, yeah, he worked for Con Ed. And you're like, what about your other uncle? He's like, yeah, he worked for Con Ed too. You're like they all worked for Con Ed, they all spent time in Rikers, and yes, they all practiced some form of casual racism.
Yep, and thank you for your friendly reminder. His white folks in Rikers too, because don't nobody really be talking about it, but rappers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Staten Island's in there.
Hey, listen, man. The wrong weekend at Staten Island could find you a lot of new friends that you meet in an exotic locale called Rikers Island.
I got news for you. The wrong weekend in Staten Island is whatever weekend I wind up in Staten Island. 8 years, and that shit ain't come up not one time.
This wasn't that Pete Davidson who said there's a reason the ferry's free.
So I did look, though. There's apparently, I may have talked about this on here before, but apparently there's like some cool Chinese garden in Staten Island, but I'm not sure what's so cool that I'll actually go to Staten Island.
If they pay you $100, that would be a very cool garden if they paid you $100 to show up.
Not even close. Not even close. It's too far. It's too far. Not even close.
200? Can I get you out there for 2?
It's going to take a stack.
Okay, we'll get you out there for $1,000.
I'll put it to you like this. We tried to get Ghostface to do something for Game Theory,
mm-hmm.
and I believe he still lives in Staten Island.
Oh, wow.
I think. I'm not certain, right? But I'm going to operate on the assumption and the hypothesis that he does stay there. And they said, quote, it takes $10,000 to get him to leave the house.
I mean, I get that because he spent 25 years telling me how comfortable his robes are. You try to tell me you get me out of that robe for anything less than $10K? I have 2 decades of comfy robe data.
I was down to go at least half out of my own pocket.
As you should have,
frankly. At least half out of my own pocket. I was absolutely to get. I wanted it to be like Ghostface Man on the street. Mm-hmm. There was no telling what might happen. I had no idea what Ghostface might say. And I was like, 5 G's? Oh, yeah, I throw 5 G's at that.
I mean, I owe him. I owe him for fish scale alone. So, yeah, if I had it, I would 100% hand it to Ghostface.
Yeah, before this becomes the Ghostface episode, because there's so many directions that we could go in. It could quickly, like the Stevie Wonder episode, that wasn't a plan. It just became the Stevie Wonder episode.
No, it did. It did. And we could do a Ghostface episode because he's that Titanic.
He is. He and Pimp C, I believe you. Whatever you have said, I believe you.
I believe you from my heart because I have seen your honesty. That's it.
Yes.
The only man who did a rap sex song where he was talking about how if his diabetes and his blood sugar weren't properly calibrated, then it was not happening. That's the kind of honesty you get with Ghostface. Frank honesty.
The man who had a rap sex song about a tryst with his son's pregnant girlfriend. And when his son had a problem with it, he punched him in the face and then sent him to the store to get, among other things, a steak to hold over his eye.
Put it on the list.
It's a thorough list. Also on the list. So this weekend, I'm at the house, minding my own business, and President Donald Trump went down to Alabama. He was the commencement speaker. And there'd been a lot about that. Like, it is worth noting, and this is in large part just because it's a college and it's young people and stuff like that, but Trump did not win the vote at the University of Alabama. So this is actually somewhat of a controversial idea of having him as the commencement speaker. Like, maybe not with the Roll Tide in overall general, right? Like the Roll Tide, the state of Roll Tide, not so much. The University of Roll Tide, maybe slightly different. So then I look up, and Nick Saban is doing the introduction for Trump, which I have to say, a touch surprising given what most of us who are somewhat familiar with that world think we know about Nick Saban's politics.
Or what we definitely know. Like, to clarify, that man was, I believe, a blue dog Democrat, i.e. he was a Joe Manchin guy. So, like, old school, what we would call the rural Democrat, the Democrat who's like, I would really like a highway named after me because I built it and appropriate. Like, if you go to West Virginia, Robert Byrd, everything's named after Robert Byrd, right? Senator Robert Byrd, because he had that pipeline and was just shunting money into West Virginia. That's very much Nick Saban's political bona fides. To see him introducing Donald Trump, I have a very, very specific take on it. That sucks, man. That sucks.
It was a little bit disappointing, but I also got the feeling from like checking some of the jokes and stuff that he was making up there, seemed a little nervous about it.
Probably pretty nervous about it. Probably could have carried it off a little slicker if he'd said, "It's your president. I'm here to introduce Donald Trump." Right?
Yes.
Like that's really what he could have done at the University of Alabama, given what he accomplished there. But yeah, it absolutely sucks. I'm sure in his mind, there's some kind of rationale for doing it and acting like this is a normal thing. For anyone watching it, no, you don't have to entertain that. It's ass.
Well, the explanation I think that he would give is the one that brings us to this here podcast, is not to simply talk about Nick Saban going there, is that apparently while there, Nick Saban asked Donald Trump to do something about NIL. Now, I don't know what exactly he wanted done, but I do know I received a phone call this morning from the good folks at CNN, and they asked me to come on television on Tuesday. And I said, what for? And they said, because Donald Trump is considering an executive order on NIL, which I believe is to limit the payments.
That's cool. Oh, so you're saying that there's a 3-letter slogan that Donald Trump has a strong opinion on, but actually doesn't know anything about. That man doesn't know anything. Let's just get this out of the way. Doesn't know jack. Somebody came to him, somebody famous, and said, "Hey, I'm a famous person. You're a famous person. You should do something about this." And he's like, "Absolutely. What is it?" No, he didn't even ask that. He didn't get to that stage. It's just like the NIL. It's bad. And in his pudding brain, he's like, "Yeah. It's real bad because this guy wants it done." And then he asked Tommy Tuberville, who evidently has his like fingers in this as well, and got the idea that NIL was bad. If you asked Donald Trump what NIL was, you get a 4-minute answer, and none of it would have anything to do with NIL. Doesn't know shit, didn't do any of the reading, didn't do any of the research, won't do any of the research, will issue an executive order and immediately forget what he did. He forgot he was going to open Alcatraz. He watched Escape from Alcatraz on TV last weekend, was like, "Hey, let's reopen that." Somebody asked about it the next day, and he's like, and gave a complete bullshit answer. It's incredible how nothing that man knows or attempts to know. And that's what it's going to be with NIL. And also, I'm sorry, none of it's going to be legal anyway, right? None of it. Like, they're going to go back to the courts, who have smacked down every attempt to limit this, and they're not going to get it. And I'm sorry, there's just one more thing, Bo. The piece of legislation that is actually attempting to do this, do you know who is co-sponsoring it? Ted Cruz. Do you know what Ted Cruz is for any piece of legislation? Cholera. Plague. No one wants to sign it because no one wants to work with Ted Cruz. There. Sorry, done.
No, so the problem is this, and I am not exactly sure if what Trump is talking about doing is limiting NIL payments. All I know is that somebody told him you should do something about that, and he was like, "You know what? I think I will." Now, something is a very broad and vague term. We don't know what exactly that thing is, and what we do know and where this gets to be tricky is someone does need to do something, right? Like I did something for Game Theory 2 years ago about this, that basically, for those who don't understand, what wound up happening was once the court said that players could be paid for their name, image, and likeness, NIL, the NCAA, rather than coming up with a plan themselves, just begged Congress, do something, come up with something. Help us out. We need some help with these rules, instead of coming up with them themselves. But what people did not realize was at the same time, the NCAA was spending big money on lobbyists to prevent players from being seen as employees, right? So where we stand with this now that I think is so interesting is that I think that Saban really does think something needs to be done about this. I do think that Saban believes in what some might consider to be some of the more naive elements of the ideas of college sports or amateurism, however you want to refer to it, or what part of it you want to talk about. He does believe that these games help make for better people. He does believe that as a football coach that he can help steward and shepherd these young men through different places. And he does believe, and I don't think he's wrong about this, that a lot of the changes that have happened, for me, it is eliminating the year you had to sit for transferring, has created a lack of stability that is not necessarily good for the players, even though they get some money out of the deal. I think all of those things are right. I think the part that gets lost is anybody that anyone is going to ask to do something about it will not be somebody who advocates for players at all, like a single bit whatsoever. Donald Trump is not up there like, we need to protect the rights of these players. We can't have somebody get screwed over like Jaden Rashada did that one time. No, 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 no. And please understand, that level of chaos still exists. Where the money ain't the money. Was it last year that quarterback at UNLV was like, hey, bro, I ain't getting the bread I thought I was going to get. I'm out of here. All those possibilities still front and center with NIL. Is the president or Congress going to do anything about those? I don't know, because I'm not sure what agenda exactly they think they're serving by getting involved in this.
Absolutely not. And I don't think that there's necessarily the kind of, public support, because honestly, it's not a matter of the public openly supporting players. I think we've seen that that's a dodgy assumption at best. I think it's that nobody understands it and nobody understands what's happening. They just say, oh, the players are paid now. It's cool. Oh, not exactly. But I think what you'll end up with is conferences coming up with some sort of guidelines for what their NIL caps, et cetera, are going to look like vis-a-vis revenue sharing, which is funny because you and I both know if we tell everybody in, I'll just pick a conference at random here, the SEC. If we tell everyone in the SEC, you got a $35 million payroll, or you got a $45 million payroll, there's a cap. We'll need to see evidence that you went under it. They will cheat. They will cheat. That's it. Do you know what you've just established? More of what we've already been doing.
I was about to say, we already tried a cap. You don't think of it as a cap because it was too good of a cap. It was the zero cap, right? Yeah. No money for nobody. People have been willing to go to jail for a long time in order to make these things happen, to pay people. Once you put the cap on, no. And so I think a flaw with all of this that gets lost, and why a cap can only work but so well, this is not, money in this game is not a function of revenue. In fact, it is entirely not tied to revenue, because the people historically who have spent the money to pay players, they're not spending from revenue. Right? The motivation that they have, they're not putting this money in so they can make money. They're putting this money in because it makes them feel good. So we're going to wind up with two levels of this. The revenue sharing, which the courts have required, and we're going to see this come down this year. And that is a necessary component of this, because what the schools have been doing, which is, how about we pass the hat and you dummies pay our players? How about that? Right? That part had gone. But no, now the schools have to come out of this as part of the TV deal because of a court decision. Okay, cool. That'll work. But this rest of it is people who would love nothing more than to trick off on some swole ass boys. That's what they want to do.
They want that. They need that. Like, that is definitely like a booster thing. It is an ego thing for a lot of boosters in terms of, I will acquire talent vis-a-vis my heavy ass wallet. That is something that they like to do. And it is something that gives them, it's a big face moment for a booster to do that in certain contexts. You can't tell me that's not a Texas A&M booster who's like, yeah, I got that guy. I paid him. I dropped many dimes. I dropped many dollars in order to let that happen.
Say what they really would say. It was one of two things. Either I bought him, or similarly uncomfortable, he's mine.
Yeah. And I'm not saying either of those.
We're not, but no. They are. They are. You're not. Wait, if I say, here's what you're not about to become, that meme. I understand you completely. I did that for you. You know what I'm saying?
Appreciate you.
Like it gets to that uncomfortable place. But that's what it is, man. These cats go trick that bread off. And look, it's not just for football and basketball. I had to be careful about this because different people want their money for different things. Somebody cares about women's basketball. Somebody cares about field hockey. Like, they over there getting some bread that none of us thought they would get. And by the way, they're going to get that bread and they don't generate revenue because, once again, it's not a function of the money they make. The Ronald Reagan years made it where nothing is important if it doesn't make money. And these cats are like, maybe that's true, but that's not why we do this. We do this for fun. I cannot imagine, and I grew up, say, rooting for the Atlanta Falcons. I ain't never think about paying no money for no players.
No, fortunately, the Falcons felt that way too for a significant portion of their history.
Fair.
But
we ain't passing the hat, dog. And that's how bad people want to do it. So if you say, well, we need to put a cap on NIL, we know how that's not going to work.
Yeah, remember, the money is going to run downhill if it wants to run downhill. And there is no way to dam it. It will find a way under, around, or if needs be, through. So how do you deal with that? The revenue sharing NIL combo is probably the dynamic we'll land on. Any imposition from Congress or above is going to come into so many. And Matt Brown, who knows a lot about these things, if you subscribe to the Extra Points newsletter, he writes cogently, entertainingly, and often on college sports and the business of college sports. And one of the things that he believes is that there's a real threat of legislation here. That's my verbiage, by the way, because I think it would be a threat to the way, to the overall quality of the way we do things, because I don't trust them to come up with a good system or solution. And I don't trust them to come up with something that A, works for the athlete, or B, doesn't favor the institution. I think that's just how law works. It'll favor the institution over the individual, and the mailbox over the person, right? Like, I think the commodity usually ends up winning when we're talking about writing legislation. But he thinks it's a danger. He thinks it's something that could actually happen. So we have to entertain two options: that they might do something and it'll be just as bad as you imagine.
I don't think that the Congress people, senators, however you want, whichever ones we're talking about, I don't think they know what side they're supposed to be on anymore. Right? Because the obvious answer before was we're on the side of not paying players, right? The side that involves not giving black people money, historically, been a winner, right? But now people have got a taste of this new NIL life, and it's chaotic. It's problematic for the future of the sport, all of that. But I also think that people kind of like it a little bit, right? Like, they kind of like the idea of what it is. And so you now tell, let's take a school like Miami. I don't know how many of their billionaire boosters are still billionaires, because that's how money works in Miami.
Correct.
But they had a little run where they felt like they could throw a bunch of bread and go make some things happen. Mm-hmm. You think they want to go back to it being even Steven? Right? You think SMU does not? SMU was like, finally, we've been waiting on this day, right? Mm-hmm. Right? We started this gangster shit. Like, wasn't nobody out here throwing bread like us. You think we about to stop? You got this messed up. So, like, if I'm Ted Cruz, I don't know what the answer is that wins me points, right? However, to be fair, Ted Cruz has figured out how to be a successful politician without being liked by people. And I don't really know how he's made that work, but he has.
Without doing his job. His job is presumably to legislate. He's got next to nothing on that record. So, a neat trick, dude. Congratulations. I don't know where he lands in Texas, because if all politics are local, and I do believe they are, and he is aligned with the people that I think he is aligned with, which is every major college football program ostensibly in Texas, he shows up and they lose. That's kind of his thing, that if he shows up and is like, go Red Raiders, Texas Tech's going to lose. Or if he says, go Baylor, Baylor's going to get pummeled. That's how it works. Not only for college sports, by the way, across all sports, the man is such a blight on your potential to win that his staffers will go online and immediately contest when you say these things and say, well, he showed up at a Cowboys game and they won, which actually is pretty remarkable. But anyway, where does he land? Because you and I were just talking about SMU, the grand tradition of paying people, the pioneers, the OGs of illicit cash under the table to pay players. Where does he land with those people? Because they want this. They want some way. In my mind, given his leanings and given his interests, they probably want something more akin to the old system, where we could just say, oh, well, we're not going to pay players. And the rich end up winning anyway, because they're going to write those checks.
Right. They need to, at the very least, I think the part that everybody should agree on, a deal's a deal. that part, there needs to be some standard of a deal's a deal. Because part of why a deal's a deal doesn't really hold in this is it takes a long time to get like lawsuit stuff going. And so by the time a deal's a deal is adjudicated, it may be years, for example, right? But a deal does have to be a deal. And on both sides, a deal is not a deal. And I've talked about this with people, and it's not every time a coach complains about the current state of affairs, somebody's like, oh, you don't like it now that the players have power. The players still don't actually have any power, because the coaches are still making the decision on how much money everybody gets, right? The players still are not organized. They don't really have any backup behind them. They have a little more leverage and they got some money, but they don't actually have any power. But for the coaches, can you imagine these little snot-nosed punks coming in your office every other week asking for a raise because they're using the sensibilities of 18, 19, and 20-year-olds? They don't know anything about how stuff works. They don't know any protocol or any of this stuff. And you got to deal with those phone calls all the time. That's what happened with a buddy at Tennessee, for example. It was like, hey, kid, it doesn't go like that.
Yeah, and they will call it. They will call it, and you will have to leave. If you don't have any power by staying, if your only power is in departure, then you're coming half loaded to the table. And that's most players, to be honest, at this point in college football. You know, your departure is really the only threat. Your staying isn't necessarily what they're weighing, because we can find other people. You understand the transfer market works both ways. Like the idea that there aren't people who are prospects out there that they will instantly call up or poach the minute they need somebody else. This is what GMs are for. This is what the new personnel departments that have popped up over the past 10 or 15 years are for. It's with all those, all those extra polos. That's what they're there for. They're there to make sure that not only is your team equipped and ready at all times on the depth chart and that we have the talent that we need, it's to make sure that the talent is a little bit expendable. It's to make sure that it is replaceable and we have other prospects.
Right. And I know the one thing Congress ain't worried about is them boys and ladies. They're not. Like, that's not, there's still no seat at the table truly for them outside of if there's a class action lawsuit. That's it. In which case, if it's anything similar that I've been a part of, you just get an email that say we about to vote for something. And then you're like, yay or nay if you show up.
And the idea that they could come up with something that was electorally popular at this point, I think that's also the greatest challenge. I think you're totally right about that, because I don't think they know what their winning move is here. That's it. Yeah. I don't think they know what their out is.
It's whatever Coach Blank says it is.
At a dinner where I just grabbed a guy and suddenly that's policy. Suddenly that's how we're doing things. I just write it down and I signed it, and now everyone has to deal with it, which, by the way, again, won't happen. Every time this has gone to court, the NCAA and interests that say that you can't get the money that you make by making it for an institution, every time that's come up, they have, I don't want to lose doesn't describe how badly they got it handed to them.
Every time. Like, it is amazing that this fiction stood up for as long as it did. They lost every time. They lost with the TV lawsuit in the 80s. They lose every time.
Every single time. In the 80s, when, the institution of collegiate sports, the student athlete, still pretty sacrosanct, still pretty much assumed to be a net good. And the minute they went to the courts, they were like, how do you claim this as a business? This shouldn't be legal.
Bingo. All right, coming up next, we're going to talk about the one thing. We've talked about it before, but it never gets old. Find out what. This show is brought to you by Perplexity.ai. Perplexity.ai is an AI-powered answer engine that searches the internet in real time to give you fast, high-quality answers with sources. Unlike legacy search engines that respond with a list of links, Perplexity skips straight to the answers you need, explained in easy-to-understand everyday language with sources and citations.
That's right, Bo. Say you're curious about how fifth-round draft picks usually fare in the NFL. You can ask Perplexity, and it will give you a detailed answer in seconds, complete with links to the latest sources, so you can easily verify information or dive deeper.
Discover fast and reliable search with Perplexity.ai today. Download the app or ask Perplexity anything at Perplexity.ai. They swoosh, you score. When any player scores 50 or more points during the NBA playoffs, Dash Pass members score a free 3-piece Crispy Tenders combo from Wingstop. Just place an order for a 3-piece Crispy Tenders combo from Wingstop to claim the deal in your cart. Make sure your cart has a subtotal of $20 or more and enter the promo code WINGSTOP50 at checkout. Then place your order and enjoy. That's code WINGSTOP50 the day after the game. Sign up for Dash Pass and save more year-round with $0 delivery fees, reduced service fees on eligible orders, and exclusive perks like this one. Dash Pass is your door to more savings.
Remember, when any player scores 50 or more points in a game during the 2025 NBA playoff season, Dash Pass members score a free 3-piece Crispy Tenders combo from Wingstop. Valid with use of promo code from noon to midnight the day after a 50-point game. Must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply.
So, Spencer, I don't want to belabor this too long because I understand if people are tired of talking about it. I'm not, but I understand if somebody might be tired of talking about it. I don't know if you saw this, but since the last time I talked about Bill Belichick and his PYT, he is considering getting outside PR help because the PR help in his bed has not exactly been helping with PR.
Huh. So you're telling me that an older legend in a new environment is having challenges adjusting to that environment. Something we could have figured out by asking anyone or looking at a single case of how this has happened before. That's it. I could have told you that when you announced your staff. I could have told you that when you went to North Carolina. Like Bill Belichick, if you wanted to take that gig and go, I want to do this and cement my legacy by being really good at the college level too. But where does UNC rank on your list of institutions where this would be a layup to do in your 70s?
No, at a historical over under 7-win program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is like if I had come to you and said, hey, Bill Belichick, how do you feel about a bowl game in Charlotte in late December? That UNC sign up for that. You're ready. That's a pipeline. You can get there, buddy. I have faith in you winning 6 or 7 games and going to that bowl game. If I wanted to surefire win, that ain't it. In addition to that, by the way, you've decided to complicate matters with all that. I'm just going to that's all that. Whatever's happening there, which I can't really speak to other than saying that seems like a bad idea to get other people to do your job when that's your job. Yeah, it seems like a bad idea.
I want you to think about how crazy this is in retrospect. Mm-hmm. And this is something that at some point, maybe somebody will do a documentary on. I think would be interesting considering the current state of affairs. 15 years ago, Marvin Austin sent a tweet of a Rick Ross lyric that made it seem as though he was at a party drinking expensive champagne. The year that North Carolina football fans had been waiting for literally their whole lives disintegrated. They had a team loaded with NFL talent, right? It was year 4 of the Butch Davis experiment. This was the year that it was going to happen. And they shut the whole thing down over a dude saying he had some money. Now, they went in and after that and found out that some dudes did have some money. But considering what we just talked about in that first segment, right, it is crazy to think of what ultimately happened and that program came apart. And so this time with Belichick, I talked to a good friend of mine around the program, and he was just like, look, I'm down for this. Now, to me, it was obvious that this wouldn't work for Belichick. If for no other reason than what we learned about his last stint at the Patriots is his ability to evaluate talent is questionable, right? And this game is all about your ability to evaluate and develop talent. But he said, I've watched them try everything. I've watched them try the NFL guy who just has, only NFL only has attachments to this program. I've seen them try the NFL guy who also had college success. I've seen them try the offensive genius. I've seen them try the defensive guy. I've seen them try everything in the last 25 to 30 years. None of it's worked. Why not try Bill Belichick? And he has actually been the one who seems like an embarrassment, which none of the others really were. Not even Butch. In retrospect, they didn't feel embarrassed. They felt emboldened and fought back against the NCAA for the first time in their lives.
When you think about college football and how hard it is to get 22 people on the same page, particularly when they are still novice football players, if you look at that schedule, you go, hey, in my nightmare scenario, it falls apart game 3 or it falls apart game 4. It could be really bad, especially because you don't necessarily trust everyone who's lined up to do all of the doing that you need to do as a head coach. Your GM, just to show you how badly you misunderstand things, Mike Lombardi went on the ACC network. He's the GM at UNC and is like a long time kind of like NFL, I'm going to use the word Nepo baby, right? Like a guy
just keeps getting jobs,
just
even in TV.
in TV and on radio. And yeah, dude gets gigs. Congratulations to him. That's his superpower. Mine's napping. His is getting gigs. Mike Lombardi came and said, pale blue's like kind of a soft color, but we're going to get a lot tougher. I know you don't understand the assignment. I know, again, didn't do any of the reading. Didn't look around.
This is a common mistake with NFL type of people, right? Belichick knows better than this mistake, right? Belichick came in and said, they say that Billy's first words were beat Duke, right?
Correct.
Now, granted, beat State would have been more helpful for the football job, but at the same time, he understood what was going on there. Something that happens when people take college jobs. This happened with Butch Davis when he took the North Carolina job. And this has also happened in Colorado with Deion Sanders. And it's a dangerous game to play. When you show up with no respect for what has happened before you got there. Right?
Right.
Butch Davis never got a hold of the understanding that like beating NC State at football is a really big deal around those parts. And he never did while he was there. He never grasped that idea. Like, this is a thing. You think they got a cute little football program here, but it's theirs. And they have the history to it. And you needed to memorize Charlie Choo-Choo Justice's stats and all of that stuff, right? Like, you needed to get that part. When Deion did the thing where he retired Shedeur Sanders' jersey, right then, it was like, dude, these people have won national championships and they have a number 2 whose jersey they think should be retired before Shedeur Sanders. Like, there were things that happened before this that were probably more important than this. And you gotta do, even if you go to retire your son's jersey, you gotta also retire Darian Hagan's jersey or Eric Bieniemy's jersey or Chad Brown or Alfred Williams. You gotta do something, right? You gotta show that something mattered before you got here. Lombardi, nope, doesn't get that. Doesn't get that at all. I know you guys think you dress like a bunch of punks. They're like, no, actually, we like this color.
You have to know your role, and your role is to play a part that acknowledges a little bit of the community. That's it. Like, there's a difference. That's not saying there's a community around pro teams. There is. If you jump through tables for fun in the parking lot, you have a community. Buffalo, congratulations. That is true. With college sports, it's a little different, and sometimes the learning curve is a little bit steeper. And frankly, I understand if you didn't want to make the effort and say, I'm just going to do my job, then don't talk publicly. Don't. Like it can be daunting. Jimbo Fisher at A&M was just overwhelmed. So many things you got to be, so many things you got to know, so many little pieces of lore that I'm sure he was probably frustrated that he didn't remember them all. Okay. I'm not asking you to go the full Dragon Con cosplay route when you take a position at a university, right? I don't need you showing up with a beat Duke button on every day, or as you said, beat State, because that's certainly more football relevant at this point. All respect to Manny Diaz and company. But you got to do a little. You got to know where you're at, and you got to know your limitations. And I think they're about to find out their limitations in real time, real fast.
The thing about the Belichick experience and why I thought they should not have done it was, yes, everybody wants to win, right? And winning's really, in most cases, a proxy for what people really want to do, which is have a good time. They want this to be fun. And what passes for a good time is different at different places, right? Alabama can't have fun under 11 wins. It's not fun unless they win 11 games. It's just not that. And more victories is for minor league coaches. That's kind of how they look at this, right? But Carolina can have a really good time with the right 8 wins. At Carolina, in fact, you can start off 1-5, but if you close off 7-5, people will remember it as a good time, right? But yes, the Belichick experience is only a good time if you're winning. That's it. And if he's an 8-4 guy, 8-4 is not going to cut it because it won't be any fun at 8-4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're about to find out that you're definitely in a neighborhood, not playing nationally. You are an ACC team, and that's going to mean something very specific. So your ambitions might be Ohio State level, but buddy, Wake Forest is right down the road. We got to worry about them first. NC State is right there. You might have French Laundry tastes, but this is a cookout state, and you're going to have to learn to function at that budget level and at that price point first.
And 8-4. Please understand this. 8-4. If you consistently go 8-4, you have exceeded that which is truly possible at the job you have. Like, I need you to get that. I need you to understand. 8-4. Nothing to turn your nose up at, Billy.
No, that's good. That's good eating. That's solid nutrition right there. Also, you'd be beating a lot of other NFL legends who came back to college and figured out that they lacked some of the camp counselor and state governor vibes that you need to run a successful college football program.
Jim Tressel needs to run a camp.
All right, listen, if you ran Jim Tressel, he needs to run a camp on how to do that. Because like better men, Bill, wiser men, more like innovators in the sport have come along and tried this. And Bill Walsh sitting around 500 at Stanford is just etched in my brain as, buddy, you thought you could do it. Bill Callahan at Nebraska, right? Like, you Hicks running the option. It's time to bring the West Coast offense. And that didn't work out either.
Just want to throw this out here, by the way, for the people who may not be aware of this. Jim Tressel is currently the lieutenant governor of the state of Ohio.
What he was always meant to do, man.
This is after he was the president at the University of Akron.
Mm-hmm.
That's the documentary I will watch. Like that. Look, I'm not going to lie. I'd hear Tressel's pitch out. Tressel's running for office. So tell me more.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'll vote for you, but I'll listen to you.
You know what he'd do? He'd give you a conscientious, thoughtful 3-minute answer. And do you know what you could remember afterwards? Nothing. Because I've watched a zillion press conferences with that guy. And after every single one of them, I didn't remember a single thing he said. You could read it off the transcript and go, this is nothing.
So what is it? Ben Hogan's thing about a golf swing is that a good golf swing is one that can withstand pressure, but basically you need the same swing. You need one swing that can handle any circumstance. And Jim Tressel is that sort of dude, right? Like his get down works everywhere. Highbrow, lowbrow, black, white, Cleveland, Columbus, Youngstown, Akron. It don't matter. That dude knows how to talk to everybody who's showing up. I also did not realize that Jim Tressel did not get married until he was 47 years old.
What do we take from that, Bo? Does that mean the swinging wild life of Jim Tressel was off the books until 47? Does that mean the man was gallivanting, or is he simply a man who wanted to have his ducks in a row before he started the farm?
Right. What if we find out deep down that the title of the Jim Tressel documentary is actually He a Wild Boy?
I mean, if he's like the Marquis de Sade of Ohio, if he's just out there doing whatever, if he sort of pens his own Freaking You autobiography with some of the frankest depictions of a man's single love life in his 20s and 30s, I will take that long bet. That's like a 1 to 1 million bet, but this is how fortunes are made. I'll put $1 on that.
Yeah, Jim Tressel's autobiography, he reminds you that Cleveland is the home of Halle Berry and Jane Kennedy.
It's true. If we find out, by the way, that Jim Tressel dated Halle Berry, you heard it first here on The Right Time, okay? No one was on that first. We made it up. We manifested it.
It could happen. Oh, and Dorothy Dandridge. So who is Jim Tressel's You Know I Love Some Brown Sugar? Every white man around that age got one of them, right? And like I say, Cleveland gives you Halle Berry, Dorothy Dandridge, and Jane Kennedy, right? You got options on the cars. One of my buddies told me about his dad. He was like, my dad probably considered a racist, but did that man love Lena Horne?
You always know a man of that generation has a thing for a woman where if you mention her, they go, that's a lady.
Yes.
That's a lady. I will tell you this, Jim Tressel is 75 years young at this point, or 72 years young at this point. Do you know who is 75 and very much in that demographic? And I am mentioning perhaps for personal reasons as well. Pam Grier. Pam Grier.
Hey, man. So I used to work with this dude. I'm not going to say his name. Anybody that worked with me at this time knows who I'm talking about. I don't think he would mind me saying his name. He seemed like the whitest bread white man that you would think of. When I say that man, he did not just love black women. He had a type. And that type was not the type that you might have expected. He liked his black women black. I mean, culturally black. And his queen of all queens, Pam Grier. That was his number one, was Pam Grier. Pam Grier, yeah, there's a whole world. It's a whole world of white dudes. See, the thing is, anytime it's a white woman that's built like one of these black women, the white boys all love them. That's how you know what time it really is. You know what I'm saying? So we thinking Jim Tressel might be a Pam Grier. You think Lola Falana?
Yeah. I'm thinking I'm just putting him in Jackie Brown, honestly. Just putting Jim Tressel in the Robert Forster role, and it's playing out perfectly, right? If you ask Jim Tressel about Pam Grier, I guarantee you he'd give you a rueful smile, pat you on the shoulder, and say, "That's a lovely woman, son."
He was, and probably could give you a rundown. It's like Coffee. Coffee was good. Foxy Brown, not as good, you know. Like he'll run through all of them for you.
Yeah, I think that's I think I've got suspect one. No further suspects. Crime solved. Got it.
I will say this about Pam Grier movies, by the way. I don't feel like she had time to like read the scripts. She may have been dope, but boy, we are not talking about cinematic excellence, man. It's some bad movies, but they were making sure every time you was getting at least a nipple. They knew what people came for.
That and you need a scene with her with a gun. They were like, hand Pam a gun.
Yes.
They're like, she looks very attractive with a gun. You should give her a gun. Like that was it. Yeah, not making fine films until Tarantino gave her the opportunity, which, you know, love him or hate him, I do appreciate Quentin Tarantino for taking actors who generally made dog shit movies and putting them in fine productions. Like Robert Forster was in a movie called Avalanche.
Yes.
Avalanche with Rock Hudson. And like it is so bad. Mystery Science Theater did an episode on Avalanche. Robert Forster worked hard in the terrible content mines for a long time, and Quentin Tarantino said, why don't you come up to the Tiffany level for a minute? Why don't we give you that 5-star experience? And they all live up to it. That's the best part. I love that when they take an actor who was in bad movies and was charismatic anyway, and you put him in a really good film, and inevitably you're like, oh, they're really good at what they do. Yeah, they helped keep a terrible franchise afloat. That's what they did.
Here's the problem I would have had if I were Pam Grier and I got this call from Quentin Tarantino, and I would have to make a point very, very clear to him. Okay. You will not be writing a scene for yourself where you live out your dreams. You understand me?
Yeah, no, not that dream. No.
That is absolutely what he did for himself. And what was it, From Dusk Till Dawn? The Salma Hayek scene?
You will also, my shoes stay on. Yes. My shoes, if I'm an actress, my shoes and socks stay on, young man. Yes.
But I love as he's writing the script, he's like, oh yeah, I got this one. I've got this one. Cut, we got to do it again.
Yeah.
Cut. Cut.
Listen, you're a single man in Hollywood. You have a lot of money. You can entertain whatever you want to entertain when we get off. But friend, my toes are mine. But I do respect it. But if you watch that movie, Jackie Brown, if you watch that movie, that is a man so clearly in love with an actress. I have never seen a movie that was so clearly in love with one person on screen. It's that intense and heartfelt. I'm not saying like leering. It's not salacious. It's like, no, I made an entire movie because I love you.
Well, I think for the Quentin Tarantinos of the world, right? You find out that there's a Pam Grier, and you don't realize there are not a lot of those out there, but there's some reasonable facsimiles, but you don't really get around them, right? Because Quentin's one of those guys that's like, yeah, I love black people. My mom used to date black dudes all the time. Yeah, but she didn't date Pam Griers all the time. And I don't think that her road dogs were the Pam Griers of the world, right? His fixation on that one, it is like the 1997 version, vintage, classic.
I think is the term with Quentin that he's a little bit too familiar.
Yes.
A little too familiar.
Yes.
A little too comfortable.
His scripts indicate.
I think in his interviews too. If you see him in interviews, yeah, we have some, and I think we're all guilty of this. And I say us, of being a little too comfortable with AAVE, with slang jacking, if you will.
Yes.
I just did.
But you do it with a great self-awareness that is appreciated by the listener.
I thank you. I try. But the idea is that like you're going to tiptoe, right? And you would cite your sources. And Quentin's like, if a respectful person's over here, if you're watching this on YouTube, or just listening, I'm doing a spectrum all the way over to the left side of the screen. Quentin's right here. It's a bit much.
And this is another episode for us to have the Danny McBride episode. I still need to watch the finale of Righteous Gemstones, so we'll hold off on that for just a second. But his use of AAVE with his characters, I can't tell if it's science, right? Like I have so many questions about Danny McBride's, the role of race and Danny McBride's stuff, because it's the through line in all his stuff, right? White people talking like black people from time to time. It only turned problematic in Vice Principals, where at the end of season 1, I was like, hey, I thought we were all laughing at the same jokes, brother. I don't know if y'all just beat her up. I'm not exactly sure. But all his characters are just a little too familiar. Except for Baby Billy. Because Baby Billy, I want to meet all of Baby Billy's black friends. I know the Baby Billy line that let me know the truth was when Baby Billy told Eli, you think you're Tyler Perry out here, but you're really just Luke Perry. You're just dead.
So Baby Billy, if you're not familiar with this character, I would say he occupies this like dream space between certain different types of Southern people, where you are so country that you are nearly indistinguishable from being Hispanic, white, black, Asian, whatever. Like you're just some sort of root type of multiracial Southern person. If I'm just listening to you, like if I just heard you, I would not be able to hazard a guess at all. And Walton Goggins taps into that to a scary degree.
Yes. He nailed it.
It's wild when you can play a universal uncle. It's wild when you walk in and you go, yeah, that's my uncle. And it's like, not the same particulars, maybe taller, maybe shorter, maybe different clothes, maybe different background. Nope. That is my uncle.
What if your uncle had a budget?
What if he didn't? There's a whole point in the series where he doesn't. And you're like, I remember when my uncle was broke.
That is true. But Baby Billy always finds his way to a budget. Don't you worry. At some point, Baby Billy's going to find, and Ed has a plan for whenever that budget comes. Like he asks people like, what would you do if you won the lottery? I don't know. Baby Billy does.
Got us a big old woman, does our dirty work for us. Yeah, like that's just flawless. Just absolutely flawless. And if you don't have a Baby Billy in your life, I promise you do. You're just not looking hard enough.
Yeah, no, just Google Baby Billy. Once you Google Baby Billy and you get 1 or 2 scenes of Baby Billy, you'll be right here with us, because Baby Billy's holding that show together, boy. No Baby Billy and this thing does not get as far as it does.
No. And you gotta understand too. Other thing with Baby Billy, it's relatable. You're like, man, this ludicrous character, how on earth is this gonna be relatable? And you watch him and you go, oh man, no, that's totally like at one point Baby Billy's gotta make that money, right? And he's like, baby, I gotta work late, right? I'm doing it for us. And you go, oh, I've heard that speech before.
Yes.
I've made that speech before. That's happened. Yeah. Deeply relatable character. Even when he's, doing cocaine out of a pinky ring and trying to attack a guy at an alligator park.
Yes. Uncle Baby Billy. That is Spencer Hall. Check him out at Channel 6 newsletter and other things. My brother, I appreciate you.
No, likewise. Thank you.
All right. And ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us here on The Right Time. We do this here 3 times a week. Brian Brumley handles everything behind the scenes. Thank you, sir. Remember, follow The Right Time. Subscribe, like, rate us, review us, give us 5 stars. You only give us 4 stars, I'm inclined to believe you are a hater. We'll talk to you guys in a couple of days. Take it easy.